Hi, my name is Jonathan Dixon, Vice President of International Corporate Services at OTC Markets Group. Today we're joined in London by Cornell Burnette, Director of Investor Relations at Ahold Delhaize. Ahold Delhaize have their primary listing on Euronext and cross-trade into the OTCQX Best Market in the United States under tickers ADRNY and AHODF. Cornell, thank you for joining us today. Can you talk about Ahold Delhaize's four primary growth drivers and its Leading Together strategy?
Sure. So I think if you look at the four drivers that we have, the first one is foster deeper digital connections with our customers. The second one is to transform our omni-channel platform and remain a best-in-class local player within our markets. The third would be to create a healthy and sustainable platform for our consumers. And then the last is just helping them make smarter decisions along their journey. So I think if you break them down one by one, starting with kind of the digital aspect, about 70% or more of our sales run through our loyalty programs. And so we have a good amount of data on customers, and with that we really understand what they want, what they're looking for, and with that we can tailor a program that fits each one individually. The second part obviously is on the omni-channel side, and it somewhat ties into what's happening with digital. I think for us, when we look at the land of food retail, we see a situation where you have an industry that's highly unconsolidated on both sides of the Atlantic for us, along the US East Coast and also in Europe. What that means is there's a lot of small players in the market who might not have necessarily the financial capability to invest in their business. In the way the world is changing, you're seeing that more consumers are shopping online. And if you are an omni-channel player, we think that you can get a greater share of the consumer's heart and mind, and therefore a greater share of the consumer's wallet. And so if you look, I think the COVID pandemic has really accelerated this. I think in the UK, you guys have been a little bit ahead of what we've seen in the US. I think you probably were already at about a 10% online penetration prior to COVID. That's only gone up since then. And in the US, we were a bit behind, maybe 2 to 3%. But if you look at the industry today, we're up in high single digit land, call it 7-8% in online penetration. And so I think if you thought that omni-channel was the way to go prior to COVID, you really believe that now because of what's happened. And I think what we've seen in our business is that we've gotten new customers that have come onto the platform during the pandemic because we've had these online capabilities. But I don't want to leave out the whole local operator part. We've got 18, 19 brands globally, but they really are local brands which are unique to each community that they've been in, and they've been in these communities for a long time. So we think over time, we have strong brand equities and we'll be a consolidator within the industry because of that. The other part obviously is healthy and sustainable, and I'll talk a little bit about that later because I think we've got some more ground that I want to cover there. But it's just what it says. I mean, if you look again, I'm going to talk about COVID. During the pandemic, a lot of people, I think, realized the value of health and eating healthy. You look at some people who, might not have been in the best physical condition. If you caught the virus, maybe you had a harder time than a person who didn't have these underlying ailments. And so, one of the things our brands have tried to do over the course of time, is drive healthier eating choices for consumers. And I'll come a little bit back to that later. And then I think when you wrap all of these things together, having the omni-channel presence, having good local brands, being smart in terms of understanding what your consumer wants because of digital, having these healthy options, it all leads into the last driver of that wheel, which was helping the consumer make smarter choices along his or her journey throughout the grocery store.
What are some of the key areas for strategic development in your supermarket and e-commerce businesses?
For us, the big thing in Europe is, our Benelux operations, Netherlands and Belgium. You had generally higher penetration rates in Belgium, but in the US, I think what we've done, the nice thing about it, our initiatives on e-com in the US started before the pandemic, quite frankly, because of this mindset that we had, that you have to be a leading omni-channel player to win in these markets. One of the things in the US that we've done is we started an expansion prior to the pandemic of adding more click and collect facilities amongst our stores. And this is when a consumer can order a product online, but then, drive their car to your facility and, you just meet them in the parking lot, you pack them up and off they go. I think because of this and some of the things that we've done with fulfillment, we've more than doubled our capacity in the US to serve online business over the past couple of years. And that business, I think, was about $1 billion online business back in 2019. It's now well over $3 billion. So we're gaining the critical scale in the US and obviously in Europe online has grown, obviously, as you would expect because of the pandemic. I think as you go forward now, the main thing is to be a bit more efficient and work on the profitability side. And we have a number of initiatives that we've outlined to get there.
How has Ahold Delhaize evolved in terms of its ESG and sustainability initiatives?
And we've made a bunch of strides there. We've hired a new director of, new head of ESG, Daniela Vega, last year. And I think the organization itself is kind of tooling up to really tackle this. And you can see it in some of the results. So if you look at some of the rating agencies, for example, MSCI, a couple of years ago, we had a single A rating, and we moved up to a double A rating just last year. And I think, there's a push within the organization to get the best possible rating, which is triple A. And if you look at what we've done, we've really set some clear goals, and we've accelerated some of them, quite frankly. So in terms of carbon emissions, we want to be net zero, scope 1 and 2 by 2040. We announced that at around the time of our Investor Day last November. That 2040 goal has been pushed up 10 years from what it was prior. And by 2050, we want to be net zero in terms of scope 3. We talked about the healthy eating. We want to have about 55% of our sales of our own brands coming from products that are deemed healthy by 2025. And I would say we're already almost there. I think we're at like 53%. And you drive some of that. So for example, in Belgium, we have a program, Super Value, where about 60% of our sales in Belgium, first of all, come from our own brands. So we can leverage this. And what we do is we use what's called the Nutri-Score grading system. Each own brand product has a rating, an A, a B. And A and B products typically are products that are deemed very good for you. So if a consumer is in that program, when he or she checks out at the counter and that their loyalty card is scanned, they get a discount on all of those A and B products. And so that's one of the ways that you can kind of drive consumers along this healthy and sustainable path.
Excellent. How does trading on the OTCQX market complement your overall IR strategy and better position the company amongst US investors?
The US and Europe, and within the business, the US is actually the bigger piece, about 60% of the sales. So I think it's been very helpful. Another thing that's been good is it's given a pathway, for that North American retail investor to really get into the stock, because they might not necessarily buy it if it's on the exchange in Amsterdam. So I think it's really helped out with the retail investor the most, which is nice for us.
Thanks for the insights today, Cornell. Looking forward to seeing you again in the future.
No problem.